A very warm welcome to my community. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, I'm pleased that you have joined us. Now, the final episode of Green Hill, presented by Michael King, scheduled for this week, will now become part of a November special on CBC TV8. I'm sure you won't want to miss that. Now on to the parish of St. Andrew. His community embraces every parish in Barbados, and he regards hundreds of Barbadians as being part of his personal community. That community is his heart. He is a phenomenal man with an interesting, but more importantly, an inspiring story. That story started a Saturday 93 years ago, and based on his giving, his sharing, and his special ability to be a father and motivator to many, we are all agreed that the Saturday on which he was born was indeed a day that held great promise for Barbados. Take it over, Mr. Springer.
On the 13th of July 1929, Millie gave birth to a youngster, Carl Winston Springer, in the part of St. Andrew we call Lakes. And I grew up there until about, I would say, 9 years. We moved to Belle Plaine, the city of St. Andrew. And I became a Belle Plaine boy from then. I attended the St. Andrew's Boys School under Mr. Daniel Bess. You'll hear that name continue without his grandsons have it. And my primary school teacher was a lady named Miss Aileen Clark. In the infant, in the lower juniors was a gentleman by the name of Joseph Livingston Blackett. And in the upper juniors, Mr. Lester Vaughan. I think we all know him. One morning I got to school and I didn't see Mr. Blackett, and I asked for him. They told me he'd gone to British Honduras. The next week I went to school, I didn't see Mr. Vaughan. They told me he had gone to St. Lucia. And Miss Clark had retired. A new set of teachers came.
You would recall in last week's program, Michael King spoke of the movement of Barbadians to either teach or to head schools in other islands. There is no doubt that that is what was being experienced by Mr. Springer at that time.
But I enjoyed whoever they brought to teach me. I remained at that school until about 12. And then a gentleman by the name of Alfred Wilkinson Blackett set up a school, a secondary school in the Church of God in Belle Plaine. And my mother sent me to this school. A lot of boys, maybe 25 of us attended that school the very first day. And I remember the motto of the school went like this, maybe. A lot of people don't know this language. Nihil tangimus, quam quod ornamus. In English it meant, we touch nothing unless we adorn it. And that was a sort of aim and what we call the deciding factor of a lot of the children who went to school. It meant simply you had to be the best of what you really were.
Interestingly enough, Mr. Springer personifies the motto of his school: we touch nothing unless we adorn it. Many stories continue to be told of how Mr. Springer, through his good work, his giving, his generosity, his sharing, how he adorned the lives of many.
That school I told you about was removed from Belle Plaine to Richmond Hall. I went to that school as well. There, girls were accepted for the first time. And the boys that carried it to well over 100 were from St. Joseph, parts like Chimborazo, Sugar Hill, and Golden Egg, where Mr. Smith had his bakery, Ellie Smith, Lloyd Smith to be exact. His daughter came to that school. We had the Vaughns from Golden Egg. You had people from Chimborazo, the Cadugans, Eustace Marshall from Sugar Hill, Mr. Best. Most of these people that I'm talking about have passed on. Then you had people coming from Rock Hall and St. Thomas, Jackson, Bridgefield. There was also a girl there from Market Hill, Jimburg. But that was a beautiful school, and that is when we saw the motto really flourishing. Some of the people that school produced was people like Joe Addison Richards, a gynecologist, Dr. Bernard Smith, or Spring, call him what you like, or Parrish was his name in the end, but he was a dentist. Victor Goodrich from Belle Plaine, he became a doctor of sorts. He lived in America. T.T.S. Smith, I believe you go back, you remember him. He used to be a head teacher. He has a son who was a lawyer. But that is where we flourish as young people at that school. That is the part of St. Andrew that I like, going to school and being the best you can. St. Andrew, a beautiful place. Lakes, a nice place, but Belle Plaine was, to me, a little better and brighter than the other areas because that is where everything was. The police station was built, a player field was erected, next door was a priest's house, further down the street was a church, and Long Pond was our playing ground. And we call it by a new name, by the old name, Windy Hill. That is where we spent most of our time. I don't think there's any other pond like that in Barbados. And the rivers leading to Long Pond. Some came from as far as Springvale, some from Chalky Mount, some from St. Simons, and the water converged into one big pond. We live in lakes, and very often in the rainy season, the bridge will go, and we will have to get over to the river. But I had uncles who would put me in the back and bring me across so that I could go to school, and cousins as well who were older than I was then. But Long Pond is a place that we used to be, especially in the vacation, every day. Fishing in Long Pond and learning to swim in Long Pond. That was like a home away from home for most of us during the Easter vacation or Christmas or the summer vacation. We went to Long Pond and we fished in Long Pond. We would get all kinds of fish and you'd bring them home. There was a joke about Long Pond that I always remember, a fellow named Jacob. I don't know if I call his other name. Some people in St. Andrew remember him, Jacob Adderley. We went to the shop and bought 2 red herring and took them up, got a pin made of a hook, and saw people coming down. They put one in the water, and as soon as they pull it out, and he told the people, look, we're getting red herring from Long Pond. And people believe him because it looked so real that he could throw this thing in the sea, the river. They didn't see him, but as they got close to him, he showed them 2 red herring in a skillet he had, and he put the 3rd. He said, this is enough for me for one day. And people believed him until when people got to the shop and told Edmund Smith then, Jacob Adderley had 3 fish he called them red herring in a bucket. People paused. Edmund Smith said, no, he just bought them here at this shop. He's not a liar. He's a man that makes joke. So that was the joke on Long Pond and this Jacob Bathory till he died. And his children used to believe him too. But after some time, they think that it was only that he was making a joke and trying to make us feel happy. But Long Pond was the meeting point for boys and girls, and that is where he learned to swim. You swim across Long Pond, you know you can swim. And the day that we wanted the water out of Long Pond, we were going just open by the sea. And the fish and everything were going to the sea. And you know when that is happening, the sharks over there waiting, because it's freshwater fish. But after some time, the sun would form again, and the water would come down from the various rivers into Long Pond, and that we had a nice place. I saw in recent news that they're going to do something about Long Pond and make it a place where people can visit and have fun. Another part in St. Andrew that we used to like out of Belle Plaine was Windy Hill. It was called East Coast Road, and then it is now named Ermybourne Highway. The East Coast started at Belle Plaine, and it ended up by a place called Cattle Wash, up there in St. Joseph. But we know it as Long Pond, and there's an area at Long Pond we call the Binab. That name came up last week with the people who are trying to bring back the train line.
And of course, we wish Desmond Ward, Major Boyce, and the St. Andrew Parish Independence Committee every success with their project in St. Andrew. Now back to Windy Hill.
You know where the playing field was? That is where the trains used to park. And it traveled the line to St. Joseph, St. Philip, down to Bridgetown, there, Teesside Road. But Windy Hill was the place we went when we wanted a good sea bath, because you had to learn to swim to bathe at Windy Hill. Because many years ago, a gentleman from England, working and teaching at Cotterton College. He was a law school teacher before, Professor Dunlop. He was drowned over there in Cattle Wash, part of the East Coast Road. He went on there swimming, and all people told him about the roughness of the sea. He said he could swim, but you had to learn to swim on that part of Barbados. Now you fight yourself into the sea and fight with the waves, and you have to give up because exhaustion. But if you go with the wave, it will bring you back. But don't let it carry that far, because it might go to Africa. That's part of Barbados, was where when the visitors came down with the train, they enjoyed that part of Barbados. But there have been 1 or 2 casualties down there in recent times. When I was young, a fellow drove a bus down there with people, went in the sea and never came back out. You know, so you had to be very careful. There was something about Belle Plaine that caught everybody's attention. The boys from Chalkmont would come down on Sunday mornings, and they would be boxing. They learned how to box. The people from St. Simon's, Shorey Village would come over, and you learn to play cricket. And then the Lakes and Highgate boys would come over, and you learn to play the stick. And the young people would meet, the young boys would meet some of the maestros, I call it, some of the boys that knew what they were talking about and what they were doing. So the fellows were masters. A fellow named T. Campbell. But it's another here that know they're gonna laugh, T. Campbell. And then another fellow named Delbert Campbell, one from Belle Plaine and one from Highgate. You had a fellow from Lakes called Boise Martin. You had a guy from Belle Plaine called Dickaby. This is the name we know them by. These are the names that people will know them by. We call them by the name, nobody, people will know them. And they had many, many more. But these were the guys that you went to learn stick licking. But you learn stick licking more by observing what you see go on. Then getting in front of man, you do that after some time. Because you're given a stick. And you got to, do this kind of thing. You come down here, 1, 2, 3. You got to put it in, you got to parry. Lashes coming at your head or your body. You got to be able to let it, move one hand and let it slide down. Move your hand off. You got to get your hand there, finger get broken. There are a lot of techniques in it that you have to learn. I would take time off and go in lakes because I had some cousin Joseph and these guys, or my uncle and all of them could play a stick. But the man that really we watched with this guy called Boise Martin. The others were masters at it, but Boise was different. Boise used to put what we call, you're doing something and you want to put glory to it so that somebody would get attached to it. Boise as a young man living in lakes, he would go to the hill, find for stick, you find black sage, there's a wood, and you would cut some for stick and some black sage. There was another tree called whitewood or something like that, and he would cut them to lengths longer than they should be and bring them down, put them on top of the house. I knew a man who took some to Haggett's factory once and put them in the liquor because anybody seen him doing that. But the liquor would destroy anything that the liquor was so hot that the stick might put in it. But that was 1.5 time. But he put them up there and they cured up there. They would put a piece of metal at the bottom like a nut, screw it on. Or some people get a sharp edge piece of tool and push a stick in it and get it there. Now that is a danger. You want to do that if you want to kill, blind somebody. Or if you had an attack by a wolf or a dog that would eat you like an akita, you go for him. But normally you'll stick with a stick. And one night I experienced stick licking by Miss Rock's gas station, where before she settled down, she was so protective of what she had that she brought 3 dogs looking like anything that would eat a man and let them go when the shop was shut. By this time we had gone into lakes and this is our road back home. We couldn't pass there. Boise heard about this. Boise said, I'm true, man. I get in there at night and I can check them out. Everybody warned Boise. They are big dogs. Boise are big dogs. Boise invited some of us to come by the shop and watch him. Boise went down the road, and when he got near to the shop, but near to the Miss Rock garage, he started singing because buses parked above our house, off the road, the gas station here. The first bus that got her in the morning there, but she protecting her gas and everything else. Boise gone down the road. Remember, Boise got approaching how you start. Again, I make a sentimental journey and start fishing, and the dogs came out. Dogs came out. And Boise got us taking this sign and one of this sign and about 2 behind here. Because he can't prepare it. And the first thing Boise did when the dog rushed at him was to jump in the air and came back down on 2 dogs. I think the suddenness surprised them. They ran away and Boise took care of 1 dog. That remained. When he started going for the dog, you could see both hands going, but the right hand was the one that did the damage. The other dogs came back too. And Boise went to work. The next morning, I going up lakes. When I got with Miss Rock, I saw the sergeant. I can't remember his name. I think he had come from St. Philip. Sergeant Ned King. And a corporal named Nazi Small. They had the names. Corporal Small. And Miss Rock. Boysy coming down the road walking. Call Boysy coming down the road. Boysy one over again. No, nobody touch that Boysy. Boysy too good for that. But all the other people in Lakes that heard this thing decided to come down the road and waited to see what can happen. Because they feel these two fellas can't match up to the power we had on that side. Because everybody by this thing had come from near and far. That's how we operated in St. Andrew in those days. You touch one then, and me you touch all. That, some people tell you no, but they don't know. They had just built a police station at Belle Plaine. I was a boy. I was 10 years old. I may be a little older. The police station finished in 39. This was Sunday in the early. I was at a teenager. I may be getting there. But that morning, the sergeant talked and Boysy talked. Boysy got his handful like this, and he got these 3 sticks behind it. He got to take them out. Nobody in camp Boysy anywhere. He was fast. Boysy talked and told the sergeant why he did what he did. He said, but Miss Rock said, lick up her dogs. The corporal called the sergeant aside and gently told him, all of those dogs should be on a leash. They ought not to be walking about the street, Sarge. And got on his bicycle and left the sergeant back down the road. The sergeant got on his way down the road. That corporal read the law. The sergeant must be the new woman in town, you know, want to make her feel nice. But he can't touch Boysy. And Boysy knew that. Because fellas on the waiting. Boysy walked away laughing. And then that weekend, we had a demonstration of stick licking in Belle Plaine. Fellas walking up the street coming in different directions. I don't know if it was a setup or not. But nobody is fighting, but they're showing the people in the district what stick licking is all about. I see fellas in town in the park one day doing stick licking, and I could cry. Hey, Boysy had come down there and seen them, he would beat all them. They started making fun, doing a little monkey thing. Can't play on a stick, man. Well, my brother Luther would cut his backside. You know, you don't do them kind of things. If you don't know about stick licking, stay out of it in town. Don't come and parry and stand up and hold a stick. Stick licking is a lot more than that. We played a lot of cricket in St. Andrew, Belle Plaine. And one of the fellows he highlight was a guy by the name of Comrade Cleophas Hunt. He went on to play for Barbados and then the West Indies. I used to join him in opening the innings for Belle Plaine. And a lot of people thought that when the score reached 100, I was 10 and he was 80. But the partnership was still good. A few extras here and there. But he always showed a promise that he'd be somebody to remember. And I remember him going to Kensington, playing for the BCL against the BC and scored 100. And his first match for Barbados against Trinidad, he scored 100. And his first match for the West Indies against England, he scored 100. Because he was a real batsman. I watched him from the pavilion, and people would tell me, you should have been there. But I had other aims in view. I wanted to be the best teacher in the world. And therefore, while he was playing cricket and the others were doing this, I was getting involved in what it was to be a good teacher. And I always tell people that a teacher came from heaven way back. and his name was Jesus. I was on the new reincarnated, I didn't call my name Jesus, but I knew then and I know now that I came down from heaven to be a teacher as well. So that is where I taught. But going back to cricket, we played cricket against Barrows in St. Lucie, Mother Progressive in St. Peter, a team called Sutherland from Sutherland Hill. The captain was a fellow named Sonny Harper, the manager of Paramount Funeral Home, my good friend. All these people have gone. We played against a team called Dominion in St. James. So when people ask me, when I became a little older, which parish I like St. Lucie, because you had a challenge when you got there, because I had some of the best boys playing cricket. Played against Dominion. We went to St. Thomas, we played against a team up there. It was led by a former policeman, Inspector Byron Clark, played on a land just below Richmond Hall Central. Then we played in St. James again. We came over, met a guy by the name of the Pisa. And then we went over to St. Joseph. These are matches that we played. And I used to travel wherever we went because I used to open. When Hunt was gone, I was still opening with MacDonald Smith. He used to work in the treasury in those days, but then he became part of, I think it was Sagicor by another name, an earlier name for Sagicor. And we went to St. Joseph to play against a fellow named Ashton Blackman. Then we came over to St. John, and I played against a fellow, and everybody should know that name, Horatio Cook. So that when I came to St. Philip, he invited me to come and play for a team playing by Todswood. I came to play in St. Philip against a priest out there at St. Martin's Church. Good fella, Larry. He was a lawyer, but that's all I know him to be, lawyer. But he used to wear his priestly garbs, his thing around his neck on the pastor, so then you knew he was different to the other players. He was a priest. We played in St. George, there by the church. That is where I met some of the reefer boys. They were younger fellas. So in all, I used to travel all about with the team, playing cricket, because I love cricket, but that was my role, for myself all over Barbados, playing cricket. And people knew me then as a young cricketer, and then they get to know me as a teacher, teaching because I taught at the secondary school, which I went to for a little while before it was closed. That's my early days in St. Andrew.
And we are honored to have spent the last 30 minutes with Mr. Springer as he shared his early memories of St. Andrew. Next week, Mr. Springer continues. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Goodbye.